Imagine getting fined hundreds of dollars just for making your kid's birthday special by the very HOA that's supposed to support the community. But here's the twist. I wasn't just a homeowner. I was the mayor of the town. And when they tried to threaten me with fines over a water slide, I didn't just fight back. I changed the game. This is the story of how I turned a petty HOA battle into a town-wide revolution and exposed just how much power these HOAs really have until they mess with the wrong person. It all started with a bright idea. Not just metaphorically bright, but a big, bold, shiny yellow 30-foot-tall water slide. It stood tall in the backyard like a monument to summer joy. It twisted once, then dropped straight down into a massive inflatable pool. To most neighbors, it looked like a dream. To one particular group, however, the HOA, it looked like a violation. My name is Sam, and I'm not just any homeowner in this quiet, picturesque suburban neighborhood. I also happen to be the elected mayor of this small town. But to the HOA association, none of that mattered. In their eyes, I was just another resident who had stepped out of line. And that line, it was about 2 inches thick in the HOA rulebook, hidden somewhere on page 97, under Temporary Recreational Installations. Let's rewind a bit. I moved into this neighborhood about 5 years ago with my wife and 2 kids. We picked this place for the schools, the safety, and the quiet streets. The HOA promised order and cleanliness, which honestly sounded pretty good at the time. We liked the idea of well-kept lawns and no one parking rusted-out cars on their front lawns. As mayor, I was busy. Council meetings, infrastructure planning, ribbon cuttings, and the occasional heated town hall. But I made time for my family, especially during the summer. That's when my son Ryan asked for something special for his 10th birthday. He didn't want a PlayStation or a party at the trampoline park. He wanted a water slide. Not just a kiddie one, a real one, big enough for his friends. Something unforgettable. So we rented a giant inflatable slide. It arrived 2 days before his birthday, and the look on Ryan's face when it inflated was worth every penny. The kids spent the whole weekend sliding, screaming, and splashing. The parents even took a few turns. It was a hit. It was safe, and it was temporary. But then came the letter. Folded neatly in a plain envelope, dropped right into our mailbox like a snake in the grass. Notice of HOA violation. That's how it started. It went on to say that our slide was an unapproved recreational structure that violated the neighborhood aesthetic. We were being fined $200 per day until it was removed. Now, you might be wondering, isn't there some kind of exception for parties? Turns out, yes, but only if the HOA approves it in writing, 2 weeks in advance, and if the structure is no more than 8 feet tall. Ours was 30. I wasn't just annoyed, I was confused. I had seen similar inflatables at other homes in the past. Slip and slides, bounce houses, even a mechanical bull at one point. Yet none of those homeowners got letters. So why me? I called the HOA president, Linda. If you've ever dealt with an HOA, you know there's always a Linda. Late 50s, loves bylaws, owns 4 clipboards. Linda answered the phone like she was expecting my call. "Oh, yes, Mr. Mayor," she said, voice dripping with smug authority. "We received several complaints." "From who?" I asked. "I'm not at liberty to disclose that." Convenient. I tried to reason with her. Told her it was just for the weekend, told her it was for a child's birthday, told her I was the mayor of this town. She didn't care. The rules applied to everyone, mayor or not. At this point, the fine had reached $600 and the slide was already deflated and packed up. I thought maybe that would be the end of it. It wasn't. A second notice came, stating that I still owed the fine for the 3 days the slide had been up. If I didn't pay, it would be added to my property assessment and could eventually lead to a lien. Now this was personal. Here's what most people don't understand about HOAs. They're not actual government bodies. They're private associations with contractual power granted through your deed or agreement when you buy a home. And in many states, mine included, they have shockingly broad enforcement power. They can fine you, they can sue you, and yes, they can even start foreclosure proceedings over unpaid dues or penalties. But here's the twist. While the HOA had power over me as a homeowner, I had power in another capacity, as the mayor of the town. And one of my responsibilities was appointing members to the Planning and Zoning Board, a city-level group that actually governs what structures can and cannot be built in the town limits. So I did my homework. I pulled every HOA rulebook from nearby neighborhoods, compared codes, and brought the issue to the next city council meeting. Not to argue about my fine, but to propose a new ordinance, one that restricted HOAs from fining homeowners for temporary recreational structures under 72 hours unless they posed a legitimate safety or noise risk. Ours was 30. It passed unanimously. And just like that, the HOA lost its leverage, not just over me, but over everyone in town. But I didn't stop there. I also filed a formal complaint against the HOA board for selective enforcement, a real issue that plagues HOAs nationwide. When I presented photographic evidence of other residents using inflatables, the board quickly backed down. The fine was dropped, an apology was issued, and Linda, she quietly stepped down 2 months later. But the story doesn't end there. The whole ordeal went viral after a local reporter wrote about it. Mayor versus HOA, the slide that changed everything. It was shared online, debated in Facebook groups, and even picked up by a few national outlets. The comments were divided. Some thought I abused my position. Others applauded me for standing up to a petty system that often bullies regular homeowners into submission. What it really did, though, was spark a larger conversation. People started asking questions. Why are HOAs allowed to control so much? Why are rules enforced inconsistently? Why do these private groups get to act like mini-governments without the checks and balances? Since then, I've worked with state legislators on drafting a homeowner rights bill, which would require HOAs to have clearer rulebooks, faster appeals processes, and more transparency when it comes to enforcement. It's still in the works, but the momentum is building. And as for my family, well, the next summer Ryan asked for something even crazier, a backyard foam cannon party. I called the HOA this time, out of courtesy, not fear. The new board president, he laughed and said, "As long as I'm invited."